All right, welcome. So I'm very happy to have Dr. Michelle Katan with me, who's going to be joining us to really answer some questions about the vaccines. I know we have been doing a vaccination clinic on site at Westside in the parking lot every week, and so we've had a lot of folks come in. I know that there's still some people that are on the fence, and there's still some questions, concerns. And so Dr. Catanzarite is from the Achievable. She's the Chief Medical Officer at Achievable Medical Center, and she's agreed to join me so that we could kind of talk about some of the frequently asked questions and answer questions that people may have ongoing, so that we can ensure that people have the resources to get the vaccine, and if they have questions that we can hopefully answer it this evening. Sandy, do you want to move through the slides? All right, so as I said, Dr. Catanzarite is joining us, Chief Medical Officer, and I'm the Director of Clinical Services here at Westside Regional Center, and also head of our COVID-19 task force. All right, next. So we are here to help as far as scheduling a vaccine, and we have some resources that we want to share. So you want to see if you're eligible for a vaccine. You're going to check the type of vaccine you need. Thing to keep in mind, some questions that we've had. Pfizer is going to be for 16 years and older. It's the only one approved for under 18 at this point. I know that there's, and Dr. Catan's right, you could speak to that, but there's going to be more, I believe they're going to be opening up the tiers for younger children, but they're still going through clinical trials. But right now, the only one under 18 is for Pfizer from 16 to 18. And then we also for Moderna and Janssen. You can look for an appointment online and that the website is listed there. We also have a phone number. All right. If you need help and you're not able to navigate the website, I know a lot of people have done it. It's complicated. I did it myself, and it's not the easiest for my turn. But if you need support or assistance at Westside Regional Center, we set up a phone number that you can call, and there's somebody there that's going to help you to schedule an appointment. And we also have an email. You can drop us an email. We'll have somebody respond who will be willing to kind of call you and help you work out. In addition, like I mentioned previously, we have a vaccine clinic every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In the Westside Regional Center parking lot. All right. The COVID-19 vaccine clinic, it's available for individuals supported by Westside Regional Center, families, caregivers. You do not have to be a patient. Also, Achievable Clinic, the same thing. They've been helping individuals, families, caregivers. And again, you do not have to be a patient. There's a sign up by filling out a contact form. And also, if you have any questions, you can link on to achievable.org. And actually, Dr. Catanzarite, I'll hand this over to you. So if you have anything that you want to fill people in about signing up for an appointment with Achievable.
Yeah, so basically, depending on how many vaccines we have, we open up spots each week. So if you're interested in getting a vaccine with us or know someone who is, there's a super simple form to fill out that just asks for your name, email address, and phone number. And then we'll send out emails to those folks who sign up that way to make sure they get a spot for a vaccine. And if they don't have email, then we call them. We try to make it as easy as possible. We really want to make sure we get everyone who wants a vaccine to get a vaccine. We do the vaccines most of the time inside at the health center. So if driving or outside doesn't make sense for you, and it feels safer to be inside a health center, that is different about what we're doing at Achievable.
All right. In addition, if you have questions, concerns, need additional assistance, there's the California COVID-19 hotline. There's also an information line directly through the Los Angeles County Department of Health. And so there's an abundance of resources to really support you in being able to schedule a vaccination if you've not yet got one, or you know individuals that are still trying to get it, or family members. Next. Other resources, Disability Community Resources Center. And then there's a national hotline in Spanish. All right, and Dr. Katan's right. I'll hand it over to you just to kind of talk specifically about the COVID-19 vaccines.
Sure. So there are 3 different vaccines that are currently authorized for use in the United States. There's the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and the Janssen or Johnson & Johnson, which are the same thing. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are very similar in the way they work. You need 2 shots for both of them. They're both very effective and very safe. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also very effective and safe. It's only 1 dose, which is nice, especially for people who are nervous about getting shots or really hate to have needles, or it's difficult for them to get out. None of the vaccines contain the COVID virus, so they can't give you COVID-19. They are very good at protecting against COVID, and we know they're very good for about 5 or 6 months because that's how long we've been giving them. So I think there might have popped up a question in the chat about whether we'll need boosters, and we don't know yet. But my guess is we will need boosters, and we can talk a little bit more about that at the end. So you all submitted some questions, so I'll start with those, and then if there are further questions, we will talk about those as you ask them. So the first question that was submitted was, how long will the COVID-19 vaccine protect me? Do we need to get booster shots? Which we just talked about a little bit. So Pfizer has good studies now out about 6 months that the vaccine remains about 90% effective at 6 months. I think it makes sense that it will last even longer than that, but we don't know how long. I think between the fact that this is a new virus and the fact that there are some variants of the virus coming means that we'll probably need boosters down the line. The second question we had was about which COVID vaccine is the best vaccine to get. And I would say that whichever vaccine works best for you that you can get is the best vaccine to get. The only group of people it's easy to answer that question for are 16 and 17-year-olds because they can only get the Pfizer vaccine. And so that's definitely the best one for them. For the rest of us, it really depends on a lot of factors. For most people, any vaccine is excellent. If somebody has a specific question about that, they can put it in the chat and I can ask that or answer that. The third question was whether the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is still safe to use. The person heard that you might get blood clots. So the CDC put a pause on using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine a little over a week ago, and then recently said it's safe to use again. They put the pause in place because there were blood clots, more blood clots than expected, and kind of an unusual kind of blood clot in the group of people who got the vaccine. But the risk was very small. There were, I think by the time it was all said and done, 8 confirmed cases out of about 7 or 8 million people who got the vaccine. So it's very rare. And almost all of the cases were in women. Only one of them was in a man. So there is a very, very small chance that you could get a blood clot. The risk is much, much smaller than the risk of getting very ill from COVID. And so it's still recommended to use the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The next question was whether you have to get the second dose of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. This person has heard about the side effects from the second dose of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine and are worried about it, which is understandable. The second dose is really important though. So the first dose, about a week after the first dose, you're 80% protected from getting a severe case of COVID. So it works pretty well after the first dose. The problem is we don't think that protection lasts very long if you only get one dose. So while you might be protected for a short amount of time, without that second dose, you don't get longer term protection or up to the 95%, which is the effectiveness after 2 doses. So it's really important to get the second dose. There are a lot of people have side effects after the second dose, like fever and headache and fatigue. They usually go away after about 24 hours. So it's a day of feeling kind of lousy and then it goes away on its own. So it's short-term pain for a long-term gain. I think it's worth it to not get sick from COVID. The next question was, do I have to get the COVID-19 vaccine? Can't I just wait for herd immunity? Which I love this question. So herd immunity, just to explain if anybody doesn't understand, is the idea that once enough people have immunity to a virus, then it doesn't spread anymore. So an example of this is polio. So enough people got vaccinated against polio or had immunity to polio that we don't see people get sick from polio anymore. Even though not everybody gets a polio vaccine, enough people get it that there's no place for the virus to spread. And so people hope that we can get to that point with COVID-19, that there are enough people who've gotten sick from COVID who are now immune from COVID, or vaccinated from COVID who are now immune to COVID, that even if not everybody gets vaccinated, the virus will go away. The problem is that's not very likely to happen, at least for the next 6 to 12 months. One reason is you have to get about 70–75% of the people immune to have herd immunity. And since kids can't be vaccinated, it's almost impossible to get to that threshold because there are lots of kids in the United States. The other problem is we're starting to see those new variant viruses emerge, which are a little bit, the vaccine is a little bit less effective against, which means we'd have to get an even higher percentage of people immune. So I don't think it's a good idea to wait for herd immunity. You might be waiting a long time. And in the meantime, you're high risk to get sick from COVID. Number 6 was, my doctor told me I can't get the COVID-19 vaccine because of an allergy to one of the ingredients. How can I protect myself from COVID-19? So first of all, I would say to the person who asked the question in number 5 about waiting for herd immunity, the other important thing is that there are people who can't get vaccinated or who won't get immunity. And so if the rest of us are working hard to get the vaccine to protect them. One way you can protect yourself is asking the people around you to make sure that they get vaccinated to help protect you if you're allergic to one of the ingredients. The other things that you can do are the things we've all been working hard to do during the pandemic, like wash our hands frequently, wear masks whenever we're out with people outside of our household. So it's a continuation of all of those measures that we've all been trying to take. Next, we had, my child has behavioral issues that prevent him from waiting for long periods of time. How can the regional center help my child get the COVID-19 vaccine? So I'll say things about the vaccines that are achievable, and then if Tom has things he'd like to add, I'll pass it over to him. we're scheduling the appointments for COVID vaccines at the health center. And so I haven't had anybody have to wait more than 10 minutes. It goes pretty fast. You have to stay about 15 minutes afterwards, but we let people kind of pace in the hallway or whatever they need to do if they can't stay in a room to wait for that amount of time. I purposely don't, partly because we're doing it inside, I purposely don't schedule it so that we have a line of people waiting. So usually it's pretty quick in and out. So if that's an issue for you or your child, I'd be happy to help you get set up with a vaccine with us. And then Tom, do you have other things you wanted to say about that?
Thank you very much. That was, I actually always learn something from these, and I really appreciate the information. You know, the only thing that I have to add to it, Dr. Katan's right, is I think what we're seeing nationally and we're seeing in the clinics is a real sort of slowdown. I think that now people are not sure, and there's some people that are, you know, we're thinking, well, let's see how this thing works. I guess one of the common questions is, common fears is, let's see if anybody gets any significant side effects because this thing is so new. And I don't know if you want to speak to this, but I know that, you know, even though it seems like they rolled this thing out pretty quickly, it's the technology behind the vaccines is not a new concept. This is something that's been in the works scientifically for years. Is that right?
Yeah, Tom, that's right. There was basically a technology waiting for a virus that made sense to use it on. So yes, the technology has been around for a while. The other thing is that a lot of people were nervous because the studies went so quickly and it felt like things were rushed. But most of the time that a study takes is time for enough people who got the vaccine to get sick with COVID, or people who did in the study group who didn't get the vaccine to get sick with COVID. And because when the vaccine trials were going on, there was so much COVID spreading in the United States and around the world, it didn't take very long for enough people in the study to get sick to have a good study. So what felt like going so fast was partly because there was just so much virus spreading. The other thing I'll say is we're up to almost 200 million people having gotten one of these 3 vaccines, mostly the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. And so I think we have a pretty good idea about about what sort of side effects to expect, how well they work, and what the effects are through about 6 months. So I think we have some good data out there. The other thing to know is about longer term safety, which is a concern for a lot of people. The way the vaccine works is that it's in your body, it causes your cells to make the spike protein on the coronavirus. So your body recognizes it, and then the vaccine components disintegrate, they go away, they don't stay with you a long time. There are not a lot of chemicals in it. It's a very simple vaccine. The ingredient list is quite short, actually. It makes sense that there would not be long-term effects from the vaccine because it goes away.
All right. And then I guess the only other thing I would say is right now is not the time to think that we're safe and get compliant. And we've seen, and you know, I think it's a terrible precedent, but we look at the example in India right now, where I think that they really kind of thought that they had beat it and that things were going to be okay. And so then everybody just kind of let down their guard, and then it really became bad. And what we're seeing is real unprecedented effect of the virus in India. We don't want that to be an example here. So right now, we've definitely turned a corner. We've gone from red to orange to yellow. And I think we want to keep going that, but it's really going to be dependent on all of us really doing our part, which is getting the vaccination and also continuing to be mindful and use common sense. It's wearing a mask in close quarters, is staying distant. And, you know, it's common sense things at this point. I think we all know what what's been put out from the Department of Public Health by the CDC. And now it's really putting it to practice, everything that we've learned over this last year. And I think we're going to, as a village, we're going to have to beat this. So we're here, Dr. Katan's right. I really appreciate your time. And we're going to open it up in general for questions. So Sandy, if you want to just bring us back into just regular Zoom, so we can just, if people have questions. And you can raise your hand or type it in the QA box, and we'll answer any questions that you have.
I have a question that was directly to me in the chat from Peggy, who's asked, I've heard that a booster will probably be needed 9 to 12 months after the first vaccine. If one received the Moderna vaccine, will the booster need to also be Moderna? Same question of Pfizer, or might it be better to mix the vaccines? It's a great question that I don't think we know the answer to yet. My guess is it will be okay to mix the vaccines for the booster. And it's interesting to think about whether it might make sense to mix them, like maybe you'll get additional protection from having more than one. I doubt that, well, it depends what they come up with for the booster. I know all of the companies are working on boosters that contain some of the elements of the new variants to the COVID vaccine to hope to have better protection against those. So they may look, the vaccines may be a little bit different for the booster.
Okay, other questions, comments? You know, the only thing, people may be shy just putting it out there, but the other thing, and I believe, you know, we can email you the slides that we have that kind of outline some of the resources that we have. People are also free to email me directly if you have questions or you need assistance or support getting the vaccine.
Yeah, please let people in your circles know that vaccines are really available and they're really important. And definitely, if you have questions, please reach out. Tom knows how to find me, and we can work together to make sure we get you vaccinated as soon as you are ready.
All right, I'm going to give it one more minute. If any other questions, and I really appreciate everybody's time coming in and answering that. And again, spread the word. If you let people know, you will be able to, other people can access this video. We have this recorded. So if people want to check in and weren't able to come on this evening, they can look at it at a later date. But it's good information. And Dr. Katan's right. Again, I can't thank you enough for speaking to some of these are a lot of the questions that we've gotten from the community. So we just wanted to speak to them directly this evening.
Yeah, I was really happy to be here. Nice to see all of you and some friendly, familiar faces in the crowd too. I think this is really important. I'd talk to anybody who would listen about getting this done. I think it's the way we get to something that looks more normal. We get back to work, back to day programs, back to school, is for all of us to do our part and get vaccinated. So thanks for having an open mind to come and listen.
And I guess the only final thing, and Dr. Katan's right, we may ask you again, I know Dr. Body has also spoken, but if you participate in like advocacy groups or, you know, in any kind of support groups or, you know, any groups at large that would like more information, I'm always happy to come and to those groups. And we could also try to bring either Dr. Katan's or Dr. Body to come along with me to answer some vaccine specific questions. So if you're connected with any of these groups, we're also doing outreach to any of the support groups or advocacy groups. Okay. All right. I'm going to give it one more second here. Last call. Questions, comments?
No questions, no comments.
All right. Well, everybody, I really appreciate everybody's time, and stay safe out there, get vaccinated, and hope to see everybody in person soon.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful good evening.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Okay. You take care too, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. God bless.